Good afternoon. We're going to start the agenda review session of the meeting. We have ordinances on second reading, ordinance 121-405, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, chapter 10, vehicles and traffic, schedule 39, parking zones for handicapped persons. We are adding 2 handicap parking zones and leaving 1 handicap parking zone. Ordinance 121-406 is an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, chapter 10, vehicles and traffic. This is traffic control regulations with block crosswalk in reference to Livingston Avenue. Ordinance 121-407, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, Title 13, Public Services, Water Service System, and this is in reference to water rates. Ordinance 121-408, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, Title 13, Public Services, Sewer Service System, Schedule of Charges. We don't have any ordinances on first reading. Resolutions 121-471, approve agenda amendments. Resolution 472, approve payroll 12-6-14 to 12-19-14. Resolution 473, authorize refund for redeemed tax sales certificates. Resolution
Council President, that's the one that's had a replacement.
A corrected version has been placed. Resolution 474, approval of premise raffle, casino night at 40 Livingston Avenue for the Rotary Club of New Brunswick on February 6, 2015. Resolution 475, authorized application, acceptance, and execution of grant agreement for 2015 with the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety, Division of Highway Traffic Safety for 2015 Pedestrian Safety Enforcement and Education Fund. Resolution 476, resolution authorizes budget transfer 2014 municipal budget. Resolution 477, approve amendment of resolution 111-406. The reason is to pay final legal fees in the amount of $238 to Benedict and Outland for Detective Branch Revers in the matter of Oswaldo Hernandez, Jorge Lopez Nieves, and Jose Granados Joya versus the city of New Brunswick from $8,602.50 to $8,840.50. Resolution 478, approve amendment of resolution 121-406. The reasons to pay additional legal fees in the amount of $714 to Mitzner for police officer Andrew Wise in the matter of Rodriguez versus police officer Andrew Wise from $8,229 to $8,943. Resolution 479, authorize tax collector to transfer credits on several tax and utility accounts. Resolution 480, authorize tax collector to cancel lien on 10 Simplex Avenue. Resolution 481, authorized purchase by police department on the state contract A-83921 from MicroStrategies for field support for NICE voice recording system for the police department, not to exceed $7,980. Resolution 482, approve a board of contract with Gold Type Business Machine doing business as GTPM for software license upgrade for the police department, not to exceed $8,800. Resolution 483, approve amendment of resolution 111-329. The reason is to pay final invoices in the amount of $1,000 with rolling reflex for the heavy and training of truck tires for the public works department, not to exceed $1,000. And approval of this amendment will not constitute an increase of 20% or more of the amount of the original contract. Resolution 484, authorized purchase by police department on the state contract, radio communication equipment and accessories from Motorola Solutions, Inc. for parts and accessories for radios for the police department, not to exceed $4,571.60. Resolution 485, approve rejection of proposal and authorization to rebid for interpreters for the Department of Planning, Community and Economic Development Programs. Resolution 486, approve renewal of contract for the Dial-A-Ride program for 2015 with the State of New Jersey Department of Human Services. The term is January 5th, 2015 to December 31st, 2015, and the amount is $56,315. Resolution 487, approve a board of contract, this is a 3-year, with Municipal Inspection Corporation for on-site elevator inspection, the term is 3 years, commencing on January 5th, 2015, and ending on January 4th, 2018. Resolution 488, approve resolution to refund veteran employment health benefit contribution. Resolution 489, approve a board of contract with Connolly and Hickey Historical Architects for architectural services for design of repairs to Butler Mansion, not to exceed $46,925 per annum. Resolution 490, approve amendment of resolution 091-460, change order number 1 with traffic lights. For 2014 traffic light striping, the amount is $13,892.91, and the approval of this change order will not constitute an increase of 20% or more of the amount of the original contract. Resolution 491, approve amendment of resolution 051-435, change order number 1 with J&K Construction Corporation trading as Diamond Construction for concrete ramps and other concrete work at various locations. The amount is $7,625, and the approval of this change order will not constitute an increase of 20% or more of the amount of the original contract. Resolution 492, approve relaxation of the city noise ordinance requested by Public Service Electric and Gas Company. The reason is night work to install a conduit for Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. Dates are from January 5th, 2015 through January 12th, 2015, from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. And resolution 493, approve amendment of resolution 031-459. The reason is additional funds in the amount of $30,000 with Chemtrade Chemicals Corporation, doing business as Chemtrade Chemicals US, for aluminum sulfate for the water utility, furnish and delivery of chemical for bulk feed facilities, not to exceed $30,000, and approval of this amendment will not constitute an increase of 20% or more of the amount of the regional contract. At this time, the meeting is called to order.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Council Vice President Egan.
Here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Garlotti. Council President Escobar.
Here. Please be advised that the notice requirement of the Public Meeting Act has been complied with and satisfied in that the annual notice, which gives sufficient notice of the time and place and conduct of all public meetings of the Municipal Council of the City of New Brunswick, has been filed with the City Clerk, has been placed on an appropriate bulletin board in the lobby of City Hall, New Brunswick, New Jersey, and has been transmitted to the official newspaper for the City of New Brunswick, namely the municipal.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please let's pause for a moment for those American and Afghan who have lost their lives in the war in Afghanistan. Thank you. This time I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 17th.
Move.
Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have several ordinances. The first one is ordinance 121-405, which is an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the City of New Brunswick. This is parking zones for handicapped persons. We are adding 2 handicapped parking zones and deleting 1 handicapped parking zone. At this time, any member of the public wishes to address the council on this particular ordinance? Having none?
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Ordinance 121-406 is an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the City of New Brunswick, vehicles and traffic, and this is mid-block crosswalk in reference to Livingston Avenue. At this time, any member of the public wishes to address the council on this particular ordinance?
Yes, my name is Anthony Larabina, 20 Jefferson Avenue, here in New Brunswick, New Jersey.
and I'd like to ask where exactly that is. I understand it's in reference to New Street, and is that, will that be crossing the block that the Heltridge is on, or crossing the block that the library is on, across Livingston?
I don't see Mr. Harrison, I don't see Mr.
Mr. Goulden or
Goulden.
Mr. Patterson are not here, but my understanding of the ordinance is it's a mid-block crosswalk between the State Theater and Heldrick.
And Hildred.
If
And I
you-
think that it was mentioned at the last meeting that he explained it.
Okay, and are there going to be some additions to the block, like a curb bump out, so that cars won't park there to shorten the distance a pedestrian has to cross over the asphalt, or is it just going to be lines on the ground where people can just kind of park? I mean, obviously they're not supposed to, but with no measures there to prevent parking and to shorten the distance between curb lines?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson on the fifth, I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't have that answer, but we will look at, and I know that he gave an explanation at the last meeting, but I don't recall his, what type of lining they were going to do. But we will make sure that Mr. Patterson will have that answer for you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishes to address the council on this specific resolution, ordinance? Having none?
Second.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Before we go into the next two ordinances, I would ask Mr. Lackland if you could give us a brief summation of what we are proposing.
For ordinances 3 and 4?
Yes.
Yes. We have proposed to you rate increases for 2015, 16, and 17. We propose 5% increases per year for both water and sewer rates. Projections are, or the rates are based on what we think our expenses will be in 2015 and beyond. On the water side, we've talked about quite a bit that there will be an American Water presence in 2015. At the moment, we're under contract with them for 8.5 months of 2015. We expect some cost increases in our debt service. We've done some significant borrowing for capital improvement projects lately. We expect increases in chemicals and engineering, in energy. We expect a slight increase from the Water Supply Authority for the cost of raw water. So we have looked at all of that. The 2015 water budget is not ready for introduction yet, but we've done some projections, and we think the rate increases that we are proposing will cover our expenses. We think, I've looked at what I think is a typical family of four. Their water consumption ends up in a bill of about $92 a quarter for water, $98 a quarter for sewer. So the 5% increase that is being proposed would yield a $4.60 increase per quarter for water and a $4.90 per quarter increase for sewer.
Thank you. So ordinance 121-407, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, public services, water service system, water rates. At this time, any member of the public wishes to address the council with this particular ordinance.
Good evening, Madam Council President, members of the council. My name is Charlie Cradaville. I hail from New Brunswick. I'd like to ask, when does this take effect?
I am expecting it to take effect January 1st. I'm looking for the ordinance to see if it in fact states that. The ordinance shall take effect on January 1st, 2015, following final passage, and shall be published as required by law.
Okay. Does that make this require 4 votes, or is it an emergency of some sort? Usually the effective date is 20 days after the mayor signs it, correct?
It would take 4 votes.
So it requires 4 votes. Okay. And does it have to state that it's specifically an emergency in the ordinance, or you can just...
Mr. Hamilton? No.
So I guess my next question is, Why does the city feel the need to set the rates and to set them so high for 2016 and 2017? I understand if it's, it's that time of year to decide the rates for 2015, but I think in light of the fact that the 2015 budget is not finalized, it would make more sense to just approve the rate increase for 2015 and hold off until we have a better picture of the expenses the utility is going to be incurring. And, so it's just the nature of these types of things. When you're trying to repair stuff, you're going to find out that certain things you didn't know needed to be repaired are going to need to be repaired, or maybe the American Water deal is going to end early or shrink in size. So I'm just concerned that if there's a rate increase that's approved in December 2014, that we don't really have a good picture of what our what the balance sheet's going to look like for 2017. So I would humbly ask that the council amend this and only approve the 2015 rate. Does that make sense to you, Madam Council President?
Well, every year things go up, so I haven't found an area yet where things go down for the year, and I know that we have been going to a lot of improvement at the water treatment and plant. Mr. Lockley, do you have anything else to?
Well, I would just say that we've, as Mr. Cradaville suggested, that is one way of doing it. We have typically amended the rate ordinances in 3-year increments. You're free going forward to amend this ordinance and alter it in any way you see fit, whether it's a plus or minus to the rate.
And that would be the case, because you never know. There usually things go up.
Yeah. So are you willing to amend this ordinance and
Well, what Mr. Lockley said that we could move forward if this is approved, that we could move forward if 2015 we noticed that for 2016 we don't need the same rate, we could amend it later on.
Right. Well, just forgive my cynicism, because I suspect that if it turns out that the city has raised the rate higher than it needs to be, that you're not going to introduce an ordinance to lower the rate, because that results in more money for the government to do more things and hire more people, and it just doesn't make sense that the city's going to come forward and give back this increase that it's already gotten approved. So I would humbly suggest that you, frankly, be smart and be forward-thinking about this and only approve the 2015 increase. And then when the time comes, if you need an increase for next year, for 2016, that you pass that at that time, rather than set what are steep increases in stone. I mean, it's a 5% increase for next year, and a 5% increase for 2016, and a 5% increase for 2017. So for people who are still living here in 2017, it's really a 15+% increase that you're about to approve without any real knowledge of what the budget's going to look like in 2017. So I would again ask, please, for the ratepayers, for the customers of this utility, let's be smart about it and do it piecemeal. Can you please amend the ordinance and pass only the one increase rather than the 3 increases?
Thank you for your comment. We will take it into consideration. Anybody else? Any other member?
Yes, Anthony Labina, 20 Jefferson Avenue. I have a couple of questions about the water. We sell water from New Brunswick to other towns, Franklin Park and Milltown, is that right? Or am I incorrect on that?
We sell water to Milltown Borough and Franklin Township.
Okay. Are their rates going up?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And do we have a special arrangement with Rutgers University? Do they pay the same rates as everybody, and are their rates going up? Same with the hospitals and all, the major corporations here in New Brunswick.
All those, if you look at the ordinance, there is one rate for all consumption. So yes, the answer is hospital rates are going up, Rutgers rates are going up, anything institutional. Everyone is billed the same based on 1,000 cubic feet of consumption, I believe.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that, that at least across the board, including towns that aren't New Brunswick. But again, I would like to echo Mr. Cradaville's call that you not raise the rates for 2016 and 17. It is 15% over the 3 years. That is quite an increase. and I do understand that the water utility is going through some changes. We're doing a lot of upgrades and a lot of maintenance that maybe should have been taken care of in years past and kind of has built up. When was the last time the water rate was increased? Was it 3 years ago, or did we pass on that, or how did that work?
The last rate increase was in 2014. I believe that was a 4% increase at that time.
So we're looking at almost 20% if you vote this from 2000 for 4 years. So I ask that you just increase it to 1 year and hold off on the next two, and we can revisit it. It was voted only for 1 year from 2014 to 2015. I don't know what it's been done before that.
No.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
You want to say that?
It was,
Go ahead, Mr.
I'm
Marshall.
sorry.
it was an adjustment as part of a larger ordinance that set the rate for 3 years.
Yes.
12, 13, and 14.
Yeah. it's
If
usually-
you asked me when was the last adjustment, it was in
It's usually
calendar
one
year
year.
14.
Got it, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and it was a 4% in 2014. The years before it, was it 4% as well for the 3 years, kind of like we're doing right now for 5% over 3, or 5% every year for 3 years?
Give me 1 second, I'll give that number to you. I did point out to council that we studied the rates of 30 different municipal systems in the state, and we came in at the second lowest of the 30. That in itself is not justification for adjusting the rate, but I just thought that was important for you to know. The rate increase in 11 was 5%, the increase in 12 was 2%, the increase in 13 was 3%, the increase in 14 was 4%.
So I mean, historically, it's been varied. And I think it can be varied again. I'm very pleased to know that we're one of the lowest out of 30. I don't think we have to rise to meet everybody else's numbers. If we want to stay low, that works for me. I pay for water, and I'm okay with not meeting the expectations, I guess, of everybody else. But please just hold off on the last 2 years of it. You can vote next year to raise it up if you'd like. It seems to me it's a bit hard once something is already voted on to go back and change it. So if you could just hold off on it, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Like we said, there's adjustments that could be happening. At this time, any more having no more comments, I will entertain a motion.
Motion.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have ordinance 12148, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick for the services, sewer service system, and this is schedule of charges. State, right? Name and address.
Charles Cradaville, New Brunswick. I'd like to ask, I guess, the same types of questions about this, but really the whole spiel at the beginning was mostly about issues with the water utility. I'd like to know what's being done to upgrade the sewer system of New Brunswick, and why do we need these rate increases for that?
Well, that is something that typically I would ask Mr. Goulden, the manager of the sewer system, to answer, but I'll do my best. There are matters before you all the time dealing with sewer. We do I&I investigations all the time. We televise the condition of sewer pipe in this town. I think we just acted on something like that a meeting or two ago. We have been asked to deal with the flooding problem at Charles Street. In order to effectuate that, we're pulling water and sewer pipes out from the mouth of the culvert. We send all of our sewage to the MCUA down in Sayreville for treatment. Their costs do not go down. The water system is, of course, a different animal than the sewer system. But nonetheless, there are increases in expenses. We've just modernized all of the sanitary sewer pump stations around town. We still have something to do underneath the library and on Railroad Avenue. We deferred that action on that bid for probably into January. The engineer, the finance officer, and I looked at rates, and we thought the increase was necessary to cover what we think our expenses are going to be going forward, and to keep both utilities operating in the black.
Thank you for the explanation. Can I just get what the percentages are on these rate increases?
For sewer,
Yeah.
5% as well.
Each one is 5%?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, I would humbly make the same suggestion that, you know, we don't know what issues are going to come up with the sewer system in the next 3 years. We don't know how the costs that the MCUA are going to affect our own costs, and you know, we don't know how much flow there's going to be and how you know, how many customers you're going to have yet. So raising the rates, I feel would be premature for 2016 and 2017. Like I said, I understand if the rates need to go up to keep the services for 2015. That's one thing, but I think we're perhaps you know, reaching too far ahead and reaching into the pockets of the residents of New Brunswick. So I would humbly ask you to amend this, and if you have to raise rates, raise them for the year ahead, not for 3 years. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anthony Iavina, 20 Jefferson Avenue. Again, same thing, just don't raise them for the last 2 years, raise them for the year that's coming up. That's more than fair, and 3 years down the road, when things are bad, they're good, whatever happens, you can raise them however much they need to be raised. Again, when something is voted on, it's very hard to pull back. I don't think the water utility, in 2017 is going to say, oh my goodness, look at all this extra money. Here you go, city. Here, you can have it back now. They're not going to. I just don't see it happening. And I really think that we don't know what's going to happen 3 years from now. So if you could just hold off on the last 2 years, that would be, again, greatly appreciated.
Thank you. This time I will entertain a motion to.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan. Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti. Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have resolution 471 to resolution 493. At this time, any member of the council wishes to address any of these resolutions? At this time, any member of the public who wishes to address the council, you have 5 minutes to address the council with resolutions. State your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening once again, Charles Craddock of Brunswick. I want to ask about these budget transfers, number 6. Where, basically some money is being shifted within the water utility. I'd like to understand the reasons for that.
So, Martin. 476.
We are, yes, we're taking some monies from the salary and wage line, health benefits line, to cover some other contractual obligations, primarily the invoices that have come in from American Water for the billing period of July 7th through the end of November.
And so how is that money left over? Were there employees that we were expecting to have on that we don't, and there's just money left over, or are people, I mean, where did the money come from?
It came from under expenditures in those 3 areas that are above the other contractual line item. It says from salaries and wages. We talked about that before, that the net effect of the American Water contract wasn't necessarily $80,000 per month. It was $80,000 minus Mr. Marash's salary, Mr. Smith's salary. pension costs on those people, health benefit costs on those people. So yes, that is partially what you're seeing here. We had under expenditures in those areas, and we're applying them to account number 528 to be able to pay for the American Water charges that have come in.
Thank you. And so the American Water contract, what is the status of it? It was said that that's going to continue for 8.5 months. Is it going to be downsized in any way?
Mr. Lockton, and I know that we have talked in previous meetings that Mr. Lockton has been looking at it.
It's been downsized once already when we executed the 12-month agreement. We get credits every month for positions that they don't fill. We've asked them not to fill them, they're not necessary. And yes, we're having ongoing conversations about reducing the value of the monthly contract even further.
And so earlier this month it was said that there was going to be a meeting between Mr. Laughlin, Mr. Wallace, and American Water to discuss that. Has that happened yet?
Mr. Lockton,
Yes, we have met.
you have met.
Yes, we have. I have nothing to report yet, but it's, there's some active conversation going on about restructuring.
So it's an ongoing matter, Mr.
Contract.
Carter.
Okay, thank you. The next one would be number 7. I asked about this matter last week. This is a matter that I've learned a person was falsely imprisoned for 11 months by the New Brunswick Police, and the Joint Insurance Fund is going to be paying them $75,000. I'd like to know, is that the full extent of the settlement, or are they also getting settlements from other entities like the county? Or is the New Brunswick Police the only one?
The only one I'm aware of is the payment by the city, since it was our officers who made the arrest.
Okay, and how does the council feel about that the police held someone wrongly for 11 months?
I am not admitting any opinion on that because I have no details about the case or anything happened. Obviously, it was found that it's an unfortunate incident, but I really don't know any details for me to give an opinion on it.
Madam Council President,
Yes.
there are at least 2 systems available. There's a system in the courts where bail is reviewed and can be reduced, and also a motion can be made by this gentleman's attorney. He's got an attorney to pursue this claim for him. I don't know why no effort was made to secure his early release back when he was locked up. I just don't have an explanation.
And I don't have details on the case to be able to admit any opinions, so I don't.
Well, as I suggested at the last meeting, it's the type of thing that you should look into, and I've been looking into it, and I'll be writing an article about it, but I think this is a matter of tremendous concern. You know, I understand that there's, you know, if a person has an attorney and they have you know, a favorable judge who lowers their bail, yeah, it's easy to get out, but it's not that way for everybody. And I think that this is a person who kind of fell through the cracks and was you know, just locked up by the powers that be for you know, when it's a case of mistaken identity. There wasn't, the police testified that the wrong number of suspects were involved. The witness said there were 3 suspects. The cops said there were 6, so they arrested 6 people, and 3 of them were wrongly arrested. And can you tell me what happened to the other 2 people? They didn't get a settlement.
Mr. Hamilton, if you can answer that.
The complaints by the other men made here were dismissed with prejudice, without any payment.
And Mr. Carter, that's your answer.
Okay, well, I think it's a tragedy that this man was kept away from his family, his loved ones for 11 months, and I think that the city ought to do something to make sure that never happens again. Whatever that is, whether you got to form a committee or research what happened in this case, or get the police director to show up and explain what is done to make sure that you don't catch the wrong person and lock them up, or that you don't catch a person who's actually had done nothing wrong at all. I would like to see that looked into, and I think that most reasonable people agree.
Anything else, Mr. Carter?
Yes, the next matter is another lawsuit involving the police. I would just like to know the status of it. I'm familiar with the case.
You're talking about Resolution 478?
Yes.
Still in the discovery phase.
Okay. Thank you. Number 11, 481. The field support for NICE voice recording system for the police department. What is that recording system?
Captain Miller is not here, so I don't know if we have any information on that. Mr. Martin?
I don't. I was relying on Captain Miller to speak to it. I don't know if it's part of their voice recognition program that they have had in place for a couple of years now. I'm sorry, I'll do my best to get an answer as early as tomorrow if you want to check in with us.
Yeah, thank you. It's curious to me, very curious now that the idea of voice recognition has been mentioned.
I could be wrong on that.
Right.
That was my recollection.
But you just told me that it exists now, so I'm curious. Do the police have voice recognition software?
Well, Mr. Murphy is not sure what this is, and so let's get you the information correctly before we start assuming or saying incorrect information. So as soon as he finds out, we'll do it for you tomorrow, and hopefully you get your answer.
Thank you. I'll check in, and just for the record, I have a feeling it's probably not the voice recognition. I've noticed that some officers wear microphones now, and I think that's a good thing.
So it might be that, so
maybe it's that. I've asked about it before, like who wears, who determines which officers wear a microphone and when and why, and I haven't gotten the answers yet. So that's sort of where I'm going with these questions, and I'll follow up tomorrow with Mr. Laughlin. I'm not sure if you should pass it without knowing what it is, but yes, the last one, I would want to commend the council for moving forward with the design of repairs to Bugalo Mansion. 489 is the resolution. I think it's a long time coming. I think that's one of our...
1 minute.
Okay, I'm just trying to commend you here. I think that it's a long time coming. That place is a gem, a historic gem in New Brunswick, and it's sadly falling into disrepair. So I'm glad to see you're putting some resources into it to preserve it and protect it. And I think that's the last item I want to speak on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Any other members of the public wishes to address the council on this resolution? Can I finish talking first? Can I have a second? Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes, at this time, we are going to go into the public part of the meeting. Just if you would like to address the council, just remember that it's 5 minutes. And before we start, there was one item that I needed to follow up in terms of Mr. Laravina's suggestion about closing part of the streets. The mayor and the police department, they had a conversation about it, and at this time, the police doesn't feel that it's a feasible solution, but and that's why they close traffic, Police Avenue, no parking on the sides, and the reason is because any emergency vehicles and to have clear is not a solution that we can look at it at this time for that reason. To close down George Street, because that's what it was, part of it was mentioned in part for big events. So I just wanted to deliver what I promised. I said that I was going to update, so I'll give you an update. At this time, any member of the public wishes to address the council.
Anthony Laravina, 20 Jefferson. Glad to hear that you looked into George Street. Maybe we can revisit that again. Yeah, I understand about emergency vehicles getting through, and that is very important. There could be a way we could work around it where emergency vehicles could still get through if you do decide to re-examine that and look at it again. So I asked last meeting, and I don't see Mr. Patterson here, so it's probably not going to get an answer, but I asked last meeting about capping off Jefferson Avenue and New York Avenue with the red kind of parking barriers that are able to be driven over by emergency vehicles. Was that looked into?
To be honest, not.
Okay.
Could I just
No,
add
did you?
No, no, no.
I usually have a list of things that I look, and I
Right.
can look over, but if Mr. Lackley has a.
I don't have anything to add other than something like that typically would have to be deferred or referred to the Traffic Commission for their consideration before anything is handed up to you for action.
So maybe that's.
I would think closing off one of those two streets is a rather dramatic response to some speeding, which I'm not trying to minimize, but I think you'd need a rather lengthy petition signed by a clear majority of the residents that they found that to
And then
be
leaving that area.
satisfactory, but that's typically how something like that would move forward. It would have to be presented to the Traffic Commission for their review.
Thank you, Mr. Lackley. I didn't know that at the last meeting, no, we would have offered you that
There we go.
information, so.
No, it's fine. And I will go talk to the Traffic Commission about that. So 52 Easton Avenue. 52 Easton Avenue is an empty lot on the block of Easton Avenue between Somerset Street and Conduct Street. It has been an open hole for about a decade. Right now, Boré Development is building a rather tall building right behind it. What is happening with 52 Easton Avenue? Because, as I said, it's been a hole in the ground for a decade, and it needs to move on and become something else.
I will follow up on this since Mr. Patterson is not here, and this will right here, and I will try to have an answer for you.
And then right next to 52 Easton Avenue is the former parking authority surface lot. It was given or sold, most likely sold to Mr. Boré or the Boré Corporation, I think, and I'm not exactly sure, to be used in their development of the building behind it. And the building is pretty much done, and it does not look like that lot is playing any role in their large apartment building. Apparently, it was supposed to be for some pedestrian entrance, which would be nice, but it's not. And there's a huge, massive concrete wall that's about, I don't know, 6 or 7 stories tall that you can clearly see from Easton Avenue. It looks horrible. So, are they planning on doing anything with that lot, or is New Brunswick going to get that lot back for public parking?
Again, I will follow up on that the next meeting.
And now, kind of switching over a little bit, I have a question about abatements. So, a few meetings ago, an abatement was granted to 90 New Street, and I went to the school board meeting and asked them about abatements. I just wanted some clarity on a couple of things. The school board informed me that they are not allowed to raise the money or the amount of money that they asked the city for by more than 2%. So if an abatement wasn't granted to this 90 New Street, and the school board did not raise how much they asked the city for, what would happen with that money that would be supposedly going to the school board, to the schools? Would it just kind of go into disappear into thin air, or would my taxes be lowered?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I follow the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
it's- Yeah. I'm
He's-
sorry about that.
He's asking that at 90 New Street, we granted an abatement.
Correct.
Not to.
They will make a sizable
Yes.
pilot payment to the
In lieu
city.
of taxes.
Yes.
And then he says that he went to the Board of Education meeting, right? And then he asked a question about how the cap that they have is a 2% that they could ask the city, and I believe it's state law. Yeah, that is 2%. So if the Board of Education can only,
Cap on their spending or a cap on their rate?
on the rate to the city.
That's what they explained
The
to me
rate to the
as.
city,
Well, my question is, a cap on the spending or a cap on their rate?
Cap on the rate.
the rate. So if that wasn't, that abatement wasn't there, and this Board of Education still have that cap of 2%, what would happen to the money that, would any money, if that abatement is not there, will go into the school? What will happen with that
Well,
money?
I really am not comfortable answering a hypothetical, but there's a third component here, which is state aid. Maybe state aid gets reduced if the state feels there is a surplus of local money to be used in the school budget. Maybe state aid is increased if they think there's a lack of funding available at the local level. There's a couple of moving parts in that question.
So that's the best that we can do at this time.
Well, kind of going off of Mr. Laughlin's answer, can the state look at a city or a town that's giving abatements to luxury apartments and then reduce state aid and say, well, if you're giving our subsidies away to luxury apartments?
We have,
So anything is possible.
Right.
You are more than welcome at Assemblyman Egan's office to discuss this matter, or Senator Smith. Or, maybe John Wisniewski wants to talk to you about what we're gonna do with state aid, to either to the economically disadvantaged school districts or the not so economically disadvantaged school districts. I mean, it's obviously a hot topic. We're all, concerned about what's gonna happen to our state aid, not only our school aid, but our municipal aid. Because without, speaking as a local person, without some flexibility, there's these perturbations to our budget that don't relate to things we want to do. They relate to things that we have to do because we've got these unfunded mandates from the state, and yet they, to quote a former president of Rutgers University, they step on our air hose by messing with our municipal aid and our school aid. So this is not a local issue. It is a state issue. And again, I'm sure our state legislators would love to hear from you.
Can you speak more, or can the council president speak more to municipal aid? This is the first I'm hearing about. Do we get aid from the state to kind of carry out business in New Brunswick? And how much do we actually get? Like, what percentage of our budget comes from the state?
We get significant.
One-on-one summation of.
We get significant aid from the state. I would tell you it's been flat for probably 10 to 15 years. The aid is probably in the, we were an $80 million budget last year, if I'm not mistaken. I think the aid was in the $15 million range. All other revenues are either raised locally or in the form of grants or in the form of the tax levy itself. No, I don't have one in front of me.
Okay.
Anyway, I could point out those numbers to you in the budget if you
And they're also available.
ever wanted to look at it.
Yeah, because the state has it.
Okay.
DCA, Department of Community Affairs, Government and Transparency.
And then is that tied to records being here, or is that just random? I know I have a minute left. Random kind of, or not random, but money just given to New Brunswick just because we're New Brunswick and we're, I guess, economically disadvantaged, or?
There's years worth of legislative and executive action at the state level that can that you can review. And I mean, let's talk about Camden, Patterson.
Yeah, the other places, it's not
Jersey
unique
City.
to us. It's not unique to us.
Irvington.
Right. Well, I just
Further
wanted to see
down.
if it was tied to us housing the state university. Do we get more, additional funds because records is located here, or?
The aid many years ago was broken into very distinct components, and one of them was a payment in lieu of taxes due to state-owned property being in this community. They don't issue the aid that way anymore. It's one lump sum. There's no definition to the components of it. I couldn't even track anymore what piece of that aid is attributable to state-owned property, but it was once part of the calculation. I don't know if it still is anymore, but as I said, the aid's been flat for really an unfair amount of time at this point.
It's quite a long time. Okay. Thank you for your
Thank
time
you.
and the information.
Thank you. Any comments from the council? You already spoke, Mr. Carneville.
Not during public comment.
Within the public?
No.
On the resolution, it seems like it was, there's only two of us and you're always there, so my apologies. I thought I was, yes.
You get an extra minute for that.
Yes, we have a comment.
Yes, public comment. And I would just like to wish everybody a very happy and healthy new year. And I look forward to working with all of you here in the New Brunswick government team next year. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Cradaville.
Yes, Madam Council President, members of the council, Charles Cradaville, once again, I rise tonight to support an ordinance that I have drafted and emailed to all of you and submitted to the city clerk's office. I have copies available for members of the public. Have you received it?
Yes.
Okay, so I understand perhaps it might be asking a lot to ask you to pass it tonight. I know that's been done in the past for resolutions, but this is an ordinance. I would humbly ask that you pass this tonight because you'd be passing it on first reading and just scheduling it for a hearing next year. Is that something you'd consider?
I appreciate your enthusiasm and your willingness to do this, but based on, we are not able to do that tonight. This will have to wait until our next meeting, probably not even January 7th because it's reorganization, but the 21st is that's when we might be able to see it.
This would die.
First,
This would die. This would die with this council.
yeah, and the other thing is that we don't have enough, information. We don't have all the, and you always says, you're a proponent that when you don't have all the information to postpone it and wait for it. So at this time it's impossible. We are not, and again, I appreciate your enthusiasm and your altruistic endeavor to bring this, but we are not going to be able to do that tonight.
So I'd just like to clarify, when Mr. Hamilton says it would die, is he...
It doesn't, can you explain what you meant by that, Mr. Hamilton?
We do not introduce at the last meeting of the year something that requires another reading, because this council goes out of existence. The new council comes in when they are sworn in and reorganized.
And who's on the new council?
Same people,
Okay.
same people, but they're a different legal
The
entity.
procedure.
And so if I could just ask humbly, is that enshrined in law? Is that written down somewhere that it's not possible to have a first reading at the last meeting of December and a second reading at the first meeting of January?
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes.
Okay. So,
I'm not in favor of it anyway.
so Councilman Egan, you're saying you're not in favor?
No.
Okay.
So I just the current ordinance that's in place.
Okay, I just want to be very clear that on January 3rd, Councilman Egan made it very clear the motivation for implementing time limits on the speeches made here. It was that he wants to go home early, that he doesn't want the meetings to last long. I asked about a situation where a meeting went for 3 hours and the full videotape was not made available. He said, well, I got a solution. We're going to have shorter meetings this year. And that was the true motivation for the 5-minute rule.
That's not true.
That was,
Excuse me, I need to me.
Yes, but remember, I have to
Okay,
address
well-
it, Mr.
Well, first of all, this
Okay.
ordinance has been in place for years. We've been breaking the law here. We've been breaking the law. Okay, and I'm in favor of the current ordinance. Thank you.
and so I would just
Mr.
like
Craddock.
to...
This is public comment, it's not a question and answer period.
Mr. Cradaville.
Forgive me, am I allowed to ask questions during this period? Or?
You don't have to answer.
Mr. Cradaville. Mr. Cradaville. As I expressed before, the way it is, there's 5 minutes, and I have said it in the past that I was the one implemented it incorrectly. So I put the blame on me. So I am following, and it was pointed out, that when we read it, I said, absolutely. So again, this is nothing new. This has been going on for many years. And as it is right now, we are, again, I thank you for your efforts and enthusiasm, but at this time we're not going to look at it. And it will be something that, we're not looking at it as, if we put, when you added a sentence to this that it doesn't make why should we add that? Because we already have, it's 5 minutes. And if the president of the council, with the agreement with everybody else, allows for an extra time, we have already that in the process. So there's no need to extend and to all of that because it's already there. So it's repetitive. What are you putting there? Yes, Mr.
And I think it's unfair for you to say that the motivation was to have shorter meetings. I know my motivation for voting for it and being in favor of it was to try to bring some type of semblance and order back to the meeting. If we call it rules of order, we needed to bring order because we've set through where personally we've seen people 37 minutes. 37 minutes one time 33 minutes. It comes to a point where this is still a business meeting. It's still a business meeting. Yes, you do have public open comments, but at times it turns into a show. Or, you know what I'm saying, as long as we can get, how much FaceTime you can get on the camera, it's not about that. It's about still having a business meeting, because if you have somebody stand up and talk for 30-something minutes, and somebody else wants to come back and behind and speak, you're discouraging them right there. You're discouraging them at that point. You can't do it in Congress, you can't do it on any other level, but all of a sudden we were allowing that. We were allowing more time, and it just seemed like it got longer and longer and longer. And we had to bring some type of order back to it. So it wasn't about shortening up meetings where, you know, sometimes people say we're being paid a certain amount, some extraordinary amount of fees to sit here and listen to that. It wasn't about that. It was about trying to bring some type of order back into the meetings.
And I might say that it's the public, it was in the public portion part of the meeting. And I think that it is, I'm a believer that especially in the public, and I have made it very well known, that I believe that people have the right to talk, especially in the public part session of the meeting of whatever topic that they want, and that they feel that they need to address to the council. Nonetheless, there is a regulation, there's something that we need to follow, that I need to follow, so that's what we are doing now.
Thank you. And if I can just speak to why this would be a good thing and why this is necessary, it's apparent to anyone who watches the videos of these meetings. You can go back in vimeo.com/City of New Brunswick, and you can look at the videos. And the videos make it very clear that in January and February, people were bringing a lot of issues up, and they were exceeding 5 minutes in their remarks. And they were actually bringing a lot of important issues up. Issues that the council was probably glad to address and happy that the issues were brought up. And over the course of the year, the rules were changed without council action. If you recall in the March meeting, when you first announced that this rule from years or decades ago was going to start being implemented in March, the issue came up of, well, when you're done with your 5 minutes, do you get to go back to the end of the line and speak again? And the council decided that that was okay. And the council allowed that for several months. And then later on in the year, without taking proper action to amend the ordinance, without seeking legal advice or making a public explanation of why the rules were being changed for the second time this year, that changed. And in recent meetings, you have denied me and other people the right to come back to the end of the line and speak again. So that is a change from what was implemented in March. And I'm suggesting that it needs to be clarified. The current section 208150 says that people are limited to 5 minutes unless further time is granted by the council, but it does not make it clear whether you can come up for a second 5 minutes and continue speaking if you're not done. I suggest that the council clarify it. I've drafted an ordinance that simply adds one sentence that says that members of the public whose 5 minutes expire before they've completed their statements shall be permitted to speak again after others who wish to speak have been afforded the opportunity to do so. So that addresses Mr. Fleming's concern. It addresses the concerns that this was a pro-citizen change, that this was a democratic change. And I'd like to suggest that this is not a democracy, and that over the course of 2014, you have chipped away at the democracy, and now you can see no one's here to speak up. And actually, it's just me that's left, and I'm limited to 5 minutes, and you're going to shut me down in 1 minute when my time runs out. Yes. But if you look back at these videos, you will see all the issues that were raised by citizens, important issues. So you can look. Problems at the water utility that the council was unaware of, including a $1 million debt that was racked up to East Brunswick for borrowing water from them when our facilities were not able to produce the amount of water they needed to. That was something that the council didn't know about and wouldn't have known about but for these meetings and these public comment sections. Also, problems with the community liaison failing repeatedly to follow the internal affairs review process were brought up in these meetings by people who were sometimes long-winded, but they were respectful and they brought up important points. And when you limit them to 5 minutes, it almost makes it not worth their time to come out here. And I'd like to also point out lawsuits involving water contamination were brought up, lawsuits regarding the entire contamination of air, soil, and water at Bristol-Myers Squibb were brought up. The fact that Brad Burdell, a city police officer who killed someone, was given an extra 5 months of pay on his way out the door, basically a gift. equating to $50,000 only came up because I was able to address this council multiple times. Red light cameras that actually increased the number of accidents. Many issues of institutional racism were brought up, including the city inspector who had to be suspended. Pedestrian safety issues, including underpaid crossing guards, unsafe intersections, and unsafe...
It's a year review, ladies and gentlemen, by Charles.
Yes, all things that came up thanks to citizens on the